The following program contains adult language, poor taste in jokes, racial slurs, political slurs, slants, and all sorts of things that if you are sensitive and have a delicate constitution, you should probably go watch Teletubbies. You were warned. Bam! Hey kids, welcome back. It is a glorious Monday afternoon. I can't find my Yoda mat. I think I threw it away because it got really gnarly. So I have to order another one. So, you know, for those of you that are used to me, pretend there's this big black Yoda mat. But anyway, I said in my last video earlier today that I was going to start doing tips and tricks and tools of not only boat building, but quad building. We'll redo some soldering, solder irons versus guns versus torches, cutting, gluing, all sorts of little tips and tricks for building in the hobby. And one of the things that I wanted to try out, I've known about this stuff for a while, but I've never really played with it, is this UV resin, okay? Normally, I use a shit ton of epoxy and wood glue and all these other things for building boats and, you know, things of that nature. So I thought I really want to try this UV resin and just run it through its paces and see what it does. This is some girly ass packaging. I don't know, I got a little fucking poison ivy and stuff on there. But it's called Miracle Coup, and I will put a link to where I got this. I got it off Amazon. It's reasonably cheap stuff. It's not too bad. But yeah, it's more of a craft type thing. And I know it's not gonna be as strong as epoxy, but I wanted to try a couple things. So what this is, the difference between this and normal two-part epoxy is this is one part. Two-part epoxy, you have your catalyst and, you know, your resin. You mix them up and you've got 5-minute epoxy, 15-minute epoxy, 30 minutes epoxy, 45-minute, and overnight usually are your main ones. But I wanted to try this because I thought, well, how cool would it be if you could use this? And it's like, if you don't expose it to UV light, you could take your time and do a build of something in an hour and then hit it with the light and it's frozen, or you could do it instantaneously. But I have my theories that this was not going to be as strong as epoxy, which it's not. But we're gonna go through it anyway, because there are two uses that I can see. This is a UV light. This one in particular is an LED UV light. I also got it off Amazon. I'll put a link to that too. So the first thing I wanted to try with it was, how does it adhere to plastic? So I have this radio box that I had made that I'm not going to use for anything else. Actually, we won't even use that. I got all sorts of stupid stuff here. Let's try these. These are just little clips that I made. These are PLA, 3D printed cable clips that I made. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit. Now, here's the drawback to UV resin. Even if it were strong, you can only do a fillet joint. Fillet meaning in the crevice or the edge. If I put these straight on top of each other, it's not going to work because you have to be able to get the light in there, okay? So we're going to just hold them together like this, smear it with my finger, take our UV light, and I don't know, you're probably supposed to use a more powerful one than what I've got right here. There we go. All right, and it is, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. And just for shits and giggles, I did put a drop in my hand yesterday and hardened it, and it did get very fucking hot. It does work. It does work. Doesn't leave much of a residue or anything. It's nice and dry, as you can see. Let's see how it pulls apart. Pretty fucking easy. And you can see underneath it, it did not get dry, or cure, if you will. So now what I wanted, then I thought, okay, boat building. So for plastic, it's okay. For tacking things together, it's great, but I wouldn't use it for anything structural. So let's see what it does with wood. So we got just some ply birch. This is what most of your boat kits come with, right? So what I wanted to do was take some of this stuff, and I'm even going to give it a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give it a nice fillet weld where we've got a chamfered edge. And we're going to put a little bit in there. Okay? And I'm actually going to heat it up with a heat gun. Now, the reason I heat it up with a heat gun is because the viscosity, it'll thin out. I do this when I do boat builds, and it will absorb into the wood better and give you a stronger bond. I do that with all the epoxying I do for structural. So let's hit it with the light. And I haven't played with it enough to really know how long, and maybe they say it's only like 3 or 4 seconds. But I don't think my UV light is super strong. It's kind of a piece of shit, I think. I'm not sure if I'd recommend this because it just, it kind of fades in and out. And, I don't know. All right, we'll even do the backside. We'll give it some. You can see it's not doing a hell of a lot. But it did cure. So let's try it like this. Let's do a little bit more. And I'm probably going to get some guys saying, oh, you're not doing it right. Well, you know what? Put the shit on there and shine a light at it. It's like a fucking cop, right? Okay, so I'll try it like this. Now, you got to remember, the light is not going to get in underneath there. So it has to be a fillet. And I'm a welding guy, so it has to be a fillet type weld or a fillet type joint. Okay. And it does work. And it's actually, it's sturdy, but it's not anything that I would build a boat with, okay? Or anything else for that matter. So I'm thinking there's gotta be a use for this in the fucking hobby aside from gluing your wife's mouth shut when she comes out to bitch at you that you're in a garage too long. So I did find something interesting just for shits and giggles. Here's a little cup. This is kind of funny. Watch this. We're gonna put some in here. Yes, I'm wasting it. I don't give a shit, okay? And I'm gonna pour water on it. And then I'm gonna shine a light on it. Kind of an interesting, yeah, you know, when I test shit, I test a lot. It's like, will it do this? Will it do that? Will it not do this? Will it not do that? Just out of curiosity because, you know, I paid like $7 or whatever for this shit, and I figure I want to know what it does. I think it's really, really cool that it has these properties. I wish the hell they made a UV wood glue. All right, so we're going to pour that out, and what's left is our epoxy resin, and it is solidified. Let me grab a screwdriver or a pick. Look at that. It cures underwater. It's kind of cool, but it cures this particular brand. Maybe they're not all this way. I don't know. I'm probably not going to test to find out, but this one is kind of rubbery. Let's heat it. Shoot it up a little bit more. See if it solidifies like really strong. Yes, I'm doing that because this light sucks. Okay. Kind of flexible. It's a resin. It is not technically epoxy. Now, one use I did. I don't think there's much of a use for this in the hobby. But I did think of two things. One, watch this. Piece of wood. Okay, I just hit it with my drill press real quick. And this is just something I thought of. I do a lot of boat restoration, RC boat restoration and things like that, fixing hulls and things like that. So if we take some of this and we put a little bit on there, maybe heat it up, flatten it out. Okay, take our light. Now, obviously, I would have done it a little thinner, a little nicer. Cunt. There we go. Okay, and it is solid. And it does sand fairly well. I took some 120 grit orbital sand on this. I tried this experiment for the video, and it does sand flush fairly well, like epoxy. So it's a good for filler, or if you're fixing or filling a cracked hull, or cracked anything that you don't want water to get into, things like that. For instance, like your push rod seals on your boats, around the edges, you could put a drop of this on there, heat it up with a heat gun so it runs around the edge, and then hit it with the light, and bam, it's done. It's not good for structure. I don't care what anybody says. At least this brand is not. Maybe they make one that is, but structurally, the shit sucks. I would rather use CA glue with activator. Or real epoxy, obviously. The other thing that you could do this with, because it does seal very well, you could take a servo, such as this, okay? I always double waterproof, and usually with my servos, I'll spray them with, even though they're waterproof, I'll spray them with conformal coat. But with this, you could put a tiny little dot, do that number, hit it with the light, and you can also see with this light, if your old lady's been cheating on you, shine this in your bedroom and you can see cum everywhere. I swear to God, it's a true story. They actually advertise that for, what they call it, secretion liquids from humans or something like that. Okay, now that is dry and reasonably sealed. It does work. So there is a use for it. Filling cracks, and the fact that it'll adhere underwater actually is advantageous, because if you're one of those guys that actually races at clubs or whatever, you get a crack in the hull, but your boat's still good, but you're just taking on water, this might be a good thing to do. Smear it over the top, hit it with the fucking light, bam, take off. But aside from that, I don't necessarily recommend it, but so yeah, it's kind of a tool that I'm not recommending for the hobby, unless you're using it for those types of things. Sealing around push rods, or just anything that you want to be a little bit watertight, kind of like a silicone. Works good for that, works good for wood filling, and you could use it for waterproofing servos. I like using conformal coat, honestly, but either way. So that's it, UV resin, I don't know. I will put a link in the description if you want to play with it. It is interesting, and a little bit does go a long way. So anyway, use your own judgment. Keep the shiny side up. Take care, kids. Bye.